Hey CCOB, wish I could be there with you. Shannon and I miss you guys, but man, 15 years ago today, I found myself under the Twin Towers, watching both of them burning, just wondering what could be going on. The night before, I was out drinking, which had been the case for the past year. You see, I'd walked away from the Lord. I grew up at Calvary Chapel, Old Bridge for a few years before I went to college, but then as soon as I got to college, I walked away from the Lord and began to visit the bar scene, and I was miserable. The Holy Spirit was convicting me so much that He had made me for more than that, but I was stuck. I was stuck in that kind of a routine. And that morning, as the Twin Towers were burning and I was there, I found myself having to run from both towers, having to search buildings with firemen, connect fire hoses, carry them around, give water out to the firemen as they were putting out the fires, and I just couldn't believe that the Lord had saved my life, that I was just a few hundred feet away from the towers both times when they fell, and yet the Lord preserved me despite sinning the night before. I just couldn't believe His mercy that He had in my life. And that's when God began to call me back to Himself, and that's exactly when God began to call me into the ministry, because it was just a few days later that Calvary Chapel Old Bridge was in Union Square Park, and I met Pastor Lloyd Pulley for the first time, and we were sitting in a circle singing Amazing Grace. There was a few hundred people there listening to Pastor Lloyd, and all of a sudden he says, I want to have somebody come up here and talk with you about what happened. Andy, why don't you come on up here? My heart was pounding, and I went up and I literally whispered to Pastor Lloyd, I can't do that. And he goes, do it. And he basically made me preach my first sermon. And my hands were shaking and my legs were shaking. I felt like I was trembling. And all of a sudden a peace from God came over me, and I preached my first sermon on the power of prayer and how God preserved me. And I felt God use me in a moment. And it was because Pastor Lloyd gave me that opportunity. He didn't know that 2 weeks earlier I had stormed out of my NYU speech class, thrown my note cards in the air, and left because I was too embarrassed to speak in front of people, and he had me speak in front of 500 people at that moment. And that was just the beginning of my friendship with Pastor Lloyd. And after I graduated from NYU, the church was kind enough to give me an opportunity to come on staff as an intern, and eventually was ordained there. And I had a great 8 years of my life serving as a youth pastor at Calvary Chapel Old Bridge. And I believe it was this event that not only drew me back to the Lord, but drew me to the ministry. And I think it's also partly responsible for bringing me out to California and allowing me to be the director of the Bible College out here, because it was on that day in Union Square Park that I also met Pastor Brian Broderson. And the Lord was orchestrating all these events together to save my life. And really what He was doing was He was multitasking. He was bringing beauty from ashes. The Lord was very active that day in saving people and ministering to people and then comforting people for years to come. And so I just want to encourage you that there are going to be tragedies and disasters, but God is always working behind the scenes. He's always busy doing that, and we can always look to Him in those tough times. So Shannon and I miss you. We've got a new little cute boy named Titus who's 4 weeks old now, and we can't wait to visit you guys soon. God bless you guys today.